Please welcome to the stage Vice President nominee J.D. Vance. Woo! Let's give him a round of applause.
Highways and bridges are falling apart. Who's blessed and who has been cursed? There's things to be done on earth. Let's rebuild America first.
Thank you all.
Welcome. We know you're a busy guy.
Pennsylvania is like a second home for me at this point, though. So
Yeah.
I'm thrilled you guys are doing this, and I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I know the moms all over the country who are watching tonight are very eager to hear what your positions are on a lot of issues.
Okay.
The first hour, we had all of these moms were sharing stories, personal experiences that they've dealt with in the last 4 years, and then they have some questions that they would like to ask you. But we have a couple that want to ask you first.
That's right.
So you were announced as the vice president pick exactly 3 months ago today.
I didn't even realize that.
It's exactly today.
It felt like 3 years ago.
It does seem like that because we were there.
In a political campaign, the days are short, but the weeks are really long. So
sure.
it's like Marine Corps boot camp. You're going so fast, you don't realize that it's passing you by, and then you wake up and here we are.
So what are the major differences that have happened in the last 3 months since being announced as Senator?
Yeah, what has that been like, huh?
Well, there's so much I could talk about, but of course, first of all, we're proud of these guys and we're very grateful to them, but having a Secret Service detail is really weird. And, I haven't driven a car in 3 months, which my wife is probably happy about because I have a bit of a lead foot. And I think all the moms on the roads out there are probably happy that J.D. Vance has not been on the road the last few months. But, it's so unusual because if you think about it, you show up to the grocery store and there are like 15 guys surrounding you with the little things in their ear. So even if somebody has no idea who you are, they start to wonder, well, so somebody has to be here because all these Secret Service agents are bouncing around. So there's no anonymity anymore. And, it's one of the things that just comes along with the territory. But look, we're having a really good time. I mean, what's different about, running for the Senate than running for vice president? I ran for the Senate for the first time a couple of years ago, is, I joke that when I was running for the Senate, you ride around the back of a used Subaru that was owned by one of my staff members, and now I ride around a 737, right? So it's a little more comfortable than it was, but it's also what's really cool, and this is partially just because, life happens, and we had our third baby about 4 months before the Republican primary when I was running for Senate. This time the kids, they're 2, they're 4, they're 7, and they can kind of come with us, and they're part of the journey a little bit. And so that's just it's a really cool thing to see the country from the perspective of a 7-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. Yeah. And it's been a very, very nice thing. It's been a great family adventure for all of us.
So I really liked this story. We were together on the Tucker tour, that you were talking about how you may have had to cancel on Tucker because you got sick. That's a
you
real
didn't
dad
have
story.
any carnivals before you came here, right?
No, not today. No, but that was a tough day. So that was in Hershey, PA, and we're not too far from Hershey, right?
No.
So yeah, I again, because you're surrounded by Secret Service and everybody knows who I am now, and so whenever I do something, there are like 10 separate iPhone cameras that are trained on me, right? And my kid, my 7-year-old, I'm like, all right, I really want you to go on a roller coaster with me at Hershey Park. And he goes, okay, but you have to go on one of these ridiculous spinny rides afterwards. And I do the roller coaster, it's great, and then we get on the spinny ride, and I just, about 2 seconds in, I think to myself, I'm going to throw up all over myself. And it was like going so fast, and I could see these iPhone cameras from people in the, outside of the ride. I'm thinking to myself, this is going to look, when I throw up, it's gonna look like one of these old sprinklers, chook, 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 chook. And it's gonna be captured on camera for the entire internet to see. And luckily, I held it together. I think the Secret Service may have actually stopped the ride a few seconds early because they could see that I was really not doing well. But, you know, whatever revenge my son, had he ever wanted to get revenge on me, he got it, that 2-minute spinny ride. But look, but it goes to show, I mean, yeah, okay, that was a very miserable 2-minute spin ride. But my son, you know, where else do you get to go to all these different theme parks and see all these different parts of the country? And it's just a very, very cool thing.
What a great opportunity to have your children with you.
It really is. And again, you see it through their eyes, and they make little observations, right? Or like, you know, we're in Traverse City, Michigan, and they're really into the cherries that we bring home from Traverse City, Michigan. Or we go to Hershey Park, and they're really into, you know, like they have all these Reese-themed treats at Hershey. It's just kids notice stuff that I think you don't notice if you're just a 40-year-old guy.
Right.
And I think that noticing has been a really fun part of this.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Well, and your wife must be just, wow. I mean, she's super mama. How is she
really
handling it?
She really is. I mean, you know, my wife is just this amazing person. And she quit her job when Trump asked me to become his running mate. But she's, you know, a very brilliant and very accomplished corporate litigator. And she's like, look, if we're going to do this, then I'm going to make this as easy on the kids as possible. And I'm going to come around and travel with you as much as possible, right? Like if we're going to do this, let's make it a family adventure. I will tell you a story. You know, one of the first times that the president actually met my wife, the first times they had really talked in any great detail, you know, we were actually throwing a fundraiser for him. And the president sort of greets Usha and gives her a big hug. Oh, you're so beautiful. I'm so glad to see you. And he's, you know, those of us who know him know he's a very engaging guy, despite what the media tells you about him. He's actually just a very warm and normal person. And he asks her what she thinks about me being involved in politics. And she gives, if anybody knows my wife, it's like the perfect Usha answer. It's a very diplomatic answer. And she's like, well, sir, you know, my husband really loves public service. We love the state of Ohio. And I'm just really thrilled to be able to help him out where I can. And Trump looks at her and goes, yeah, my wife hates it too.
You know, I'm so glad you brought up President.
Honesty.
But that's what I love about Trump. Like, Trump finds the real truth in something, and whether
He
you
is
want him
very
to say it or not, he just points his finger right at it.
So I'm glad you brought him up because a lot of people have brought up the fact that you are not a big fan of President Trump.
Sure.
And
Trust
that you are
me.
very
He remembers
vocal
very well.
about it. So, you know, the big thing I think that moms would like to know is what changed?
Yeah, well, a lot changed. I mean, one, I become a father, right? So my first was born in 2017, and then our second a couple years later, our third a couple years after that. And I think you think about the country a little bit differently, I think, as at least I did when I became a father. I took a slightly different perspective, maybe a little bit more protective, a little bit more worried about the future than I had been, even though life was going very well for us. I just think that, you know, becoming a dad changes your perspective like that. But I think really importantly is there were a lot of predictions that were made about Donald Trump's 4 years in office. And I think for swing voters, people who are on the fence, there are a lot of predictions right now being made about Donald Trump. If he gets in office, all of these bad things will happen, right? That's what the media says. That's what the Democrats say. And a part of me, and I'm ashamed to admit it, but it's more important to be honest, I think, is I kind of bought into some of the lies in 2016. Well, and then he was president, and take-home pay was going up faster than it had in 40 years. Inflation was low. The border was secure. And remember, they all said Donald Trump was going to start World War III, and yet we had more peace around the globe than we had had in a generation in this country. And you sort of like, okay. And I really, you know, politics is sort of, I think the incentives are all messed up in politics because, you know, people don't want to admit that they changed their mind. They don't want to admit that they're wrong. And so there's this thing where you try to pretend, even though it's obvious that you screwed something up, you never want to admit it. I think it'd be much better if we had political leaders say, you know what? I thought this was going to happen. Something else actually happened. I was wrong. Like, it's okay to be humble and say I screwed something up. And I again, for a lot of voters who are still on the fence, I'd say the very same thing they're saying about Trump now, they said in 2015 and 2016. That's right. And I actually think that we're going to have an even bigger and even better presidential term because we've got, frankly, so many more big problems to solve now than we did even in 2016. So look, basically, he did a hell of a job, and it's important to say, I was wrong.
Yeah, I think I do too.
Right.